Up next, we have the former CEO of one of America's largest church planting networks, the former pastor of not one but two megachurches. So I have to hear that story at some point as well. And a powerful voice in the trans Christian community, Reverend Dr. Paula Williams.
So I listened to everyone, and Mary Oliver comes to mind, the Pulitzer Prize-winning poet in her poem, The Journey. One day, you knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting the bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried, mend my life. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough, in a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own. It kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. I was a very successful white American male. I was the chairman and CEO of one of the nation's largest church planting organizations. I was on the regular preaching team of 2 different megachurches. I preached in 3 of the 12 largest churches in America. I was the editor-at-large of a very large Christian magazine. I was on a television show that was in 70 markets around the nation. I was a seminary professor in 4 different seminaries. I was successful and I was comfortable. Did you ever notice that God has this habit of afflicting the comfortable? God comforts the afflicted. God afflicts the comfortable. Thomas Merton said it's a terrible thing to climb to the top of the ladder of success and realize once you get there that your ladder's been leaning against the wrong wall. I was 3 or 4 years old when I realized I was transgender. I knew I was a girl, and in my naivete, I was quite sure, before I started kindergarten, a gender fairy would arrive and say, okay, the time has come. And of course, I knew what I would say. It's what I was, a girl, but alas, no gender fairy arrived. And I started kindergarten, the tallest boy in the class. It was not okay. Why didn't you talk to your parents about this? My father was a fundamentalist pastor. My mother was even more theologically conservative than my father. That's a conversation that wasn't going to go well. So I just lived my life. I didn't hate being a boy. I didn't feel like a girl trapped in a boy's body. That's media language. I just knew I wasn't a boy. I got to junior high school. My body started changing in ways I did not want it to change, and all my friends who were girls had bodies changing in ways I was desperate to change. Then I got to high school and I was attracted to girls and I started dating them, but there was a complication. I wanted to date a girl, I also wanted to be the same girl. It was a bit of a problem. I had a scholarship to a state university in broadcast journalism. I was not about to take that because at a state university I might have to deal with myself, so I went to a Bible college instead. There we can keep it down. I met a girl there I wanted to date, I did not want to be. I married her. We had children. I love being a dad. I love being a father. I thought, oh, I think I can do this. I can do this. We can keep it on the back burner. I can do this. It'll be okay. And then the kids left home, and being transgender came back with a vengeance. I've been in therapy twice a week for 100 years. My therapist said to me, you are as individuated, as differentiated as any client I've ever had. This one thing remains. It doesn't get better, it gets worse. You need to find somebody who specializes in it, so I did. At my very first session, someone in the room said, I don't think I want to transition, but I do think I need to go on hormones. So I'm looking around the room, and I'm pretty sure it's not the therapist who said it. Surely I didn't just say that, but in fact I had. A few months later, I was watching my favorite television show of all time, Lost. I love the showrunners, Dana Lindelof and Carlton Hughes. And in the last season, we come to a point where the protagonist realizes he's been called by God to die. If you're a Lost fan, it's when Jack goes to the lighthouse. And at that moment, I realized I had been called. And I screamed and yelled and railed at God all night long, all the way through to dawn. Who do you think you are to make me this way? Who do you think you are to call me to this? Don't you know I'm going to lose absolutely everything? Don't you know what my family's going to go through? But when you're called by God, you ignore that call at your own peril. So I came out. I lost my job at every single one of the organizations I worked with within 7 days' time. At the church planting organization, I'd taken us from a budget of $167,000 to a budget of $4 million. From working only in New York City to working worldwide. I was gone in 7 days. In 21 states, you have legal rights. You can't be fired from your job if you're trans, unless you happen to work for a religious organization. I didn't work for one, I worked for 5 of them. It was a tough time. Just a few weeks, and the few weeks after I came out, there were 125,000 page views on my blog. Most of these people were really, really pissed. And it was so hard. I probably knew by name 5,000 to 10,000 people in the evangelical world. I've been contacted since I transitioned by 50 of them. 15 of them have met me. 5 have met me more than once. Among my non-Christian friends, I lost none. Not any. Not one. I'll let you make of that what you will. During that time, it was hard. 41% of transgender people attempt suicide. 33% complete suicide. It's 6 times higher than any other designation of the DSM-5. But you know why? The biggest indicator of suicidal ideation is if you have internalized transphobia. If you have listened to the language of your culture telling you not that you're doing wrong, but that you are wrong. That you do not deserve to exist. And where do we hear that the most? 83% of the Jewish population are supportive of LGBTQ people. 62% of the mainline Protestant population are supportive of LGBTQ people. 52% of American Catholics are supportive of LGBTQ people, but it's not a democracy. And among evangelicals, 27%. We have a problem. Embedded in my identity are responsibilities. I have to speak out toward the problem. But so many of you don't. We need allies willing to stand up and speak out. And say, this is not okay. People who don't have to, people who choose to, because they know it's the right thing to do. You know, the first half of life, you're building your resume virtues. You're building kingdoms, slaying dragons, making money. But then you come to that point that's just not working for you anymore. And so you start working on those eulogy virtues. You no longer look outside yourself for your sense of who you are. You begin to look deep inside your own heart. You find you have far fewer friends, but far deeper friendships. You realize you're not nearly as concerned about being right as you are about being in relationship. And you realize at this point that when you are called by God, you really don't have a choice in the matter. Because one day you knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice. Though the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles. "Mend my life," each voice cried, "mend my life," but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, a new voice, a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. Thank you.